like it or we don't like it, or whether we believe it or we don't believe it. Man is evolving. And it's just like the yeast in the bread. It's rising.
Right. Yes.
And I like, and it's so wonderful.
Yes.
It's so wonderful to choose to believe the positive.
These are the words of Father Divine. Things have been unearthed by science, such as a few years ago, but 50 or 75 years ago, men would not have believed because they thought on terms of the creation according to the mortal religious version. They believed that the creation of the world was as they say it was. They believed it was thus wise. God merely appeared from some invisible existing place out of the hidden mysteries of his invisible majesty and said, "Let there be light," and there was light. But they did not stop to consider, and a good many of them today do not stop to consider, that there was life existence and life substance in evidence thousands and thousands, yea, millions of years before 4004 years BJ, better known as BC. But according to the religions, they had described the creation of the world as being merely 4004 years BJ, better known as BC, which means just about 5,942 years since the creation of the world, according to their version. Until recent years, men did not even consider there was any such thing as a living creature before 4,000 years before Christ. They thought 4,000 years before Christ, 4,004 years before Christ Jesus came, there was no earth, for they did not have a history concerning the mystery. Men live in such religious superstition and ignorance by the versions of others that have been handed down to them. But science, by the spirit of my presence, is going into the hidden mysteries of God's infiniteness to bring out something that they might know definitely. God is eternal. These words are excerpted from a message given on the 1st of June, 1938 ADFT in New York City. Also recorded in the New Day in the edition for the 27th of September, 1958 ADFT. Father Divine says, "Then I will teach you wisdom, things that are not seen, nor heard, nor understood by men. They cannot apprehend or comprehend, whichever, the mystery of God's actual presence. They cannot comprehend the significance of things that are hid from the surface of the material world. For men on the material plane, they can only see as far as materialistic things are concerned, but they cannot see into the infinite one, and the things that pertain to infinite life throughout all eternity. For they can only observe from here to there, or from there back here to where they are. Now science may teach you many things. I cooperate with you. But there is a science transcending all physical science. Physical science goes as far as the scientific method or physical studies can carry you, but divine science will carry you back into infinitude, and carry you not only back to the beginning, but before there was a beginning, according to physical science. Then you will see God created all things, even according to the Scripture, if you take it scripturally, why God created all things. If God created all things without the aid of man, or without the aid of his creation in the beginning, according to the Scripture, why then can God not be the same today as he was before he started this propagation? Before the beginning of the creation, if there was God, or if there is God, whichever, before these two came forth or were created, male cells and female cells, before there were any cells but the one cell, who created the first one? It is true, here in this sinful world of mortality, you find the propagation of the sexes, of both man and beast, because they are trying to do something. There are many cells in one body, it is true, but according to science, of which you are representing, it is true. Science will tell you that there were not in the beginning as many cells in the great creation as there are now. The one-celled creature. Then how did he begin? Did the one-cell creature have a female creature someplace without a cell? I have just stepped back to the prehistoric days before the creation, and the pre-creation of things into the pre-creation of things before the creation began. We may find these cells coming up, and we may find them meeting each other. According to physical science, it is true. But that is what I am talking about. Where did the first cell come from? If you call it nature, the producer of the first cell and the producer of all other cells through propagation, the first one in his creation, had to come from some place. Then if you call it nature, I may call it God. If nature produced the first cell, then I am that nature. If spirit or if mind created the first cell, then I am that spirit, or I am that mind. Because the first cell was created and it formed itself here, and then it formed another one, how did it form the first one? Something was back of the other one, something caused the other one to be formed, and then cell after cell and tissue after tissue being created and taking form infinitely until today. I am going back before there was a cell. Now this is the one of whom you have to deal with, one who brought about the first cell of all creation. That is what I am talking about. As with the first cell, so with all other cells. Every cell in creation must be reckoned as the first one, and you must see and know definitely. If there are billions of decillions of decillions of decillions of decillions of cells, the first one that was God was. In other words, the first one that was God is, and God always is. Then if that be true, he was before there were any cells, but the one, or even before there was a cell. Now tell me from whence it came. Then if you can tell me from whence it came, I can tell you exactly where this comes to us who say and know the truth so logical, because we have gone back to the foundation, before the creation of any existing cell, or any cell was surmised by the versions of finite man. When we get back there, why, then you see, every tongue is stopped. Mortality would desire to have me stay in mortality and stay in the mortal version, where I would have a destination. But in the infinite mind there is no destination. God is infinite, and his truth and his understanding go into infinitude. You cannot vision nor surmise the slightest percent of a fraction of a grain of the infiniteness of the infinite one. So in conclusion, jot these thoughts down in your memory once and forever. If there are any cells, this will answer the question in short, most distinctly. And if there is a female cell, and there is a male cell, where was the first one, and from whence cometh the first one? There is where I am, before there was a cell. There is where I am. Then I am bringing all cells and all creation back into this place in consciousness where I am, before there was a cell created. That is the answer to your question. As I said the other day, I heard a man say, which was true, there were some people, and there are some today, no doubt, would give you all $1 million, or give anybody $1 million to get them to believe that I am a good man. But my followers will not hear a good man. But my followers will not hear a good man. For it is written, and they shall all be taught of God. God is the teacher here. God is the leader. God is the instructor. Hence, if any individual wishes to speak concerning a man, it is all right to make comparison concerning man and man. But my followers, individually nor collectively, will not hear anyone trying to make me a man. Peace, everyone. On the man plane you will find you would be outdone. Man would, naturally. Man could outdo an insignificant something, as I would be as a man, but as God they cannot do a thing. As God I am infinite, I am omniscient, I am omnipotent, but as a man I am illiterate. As a man I would be nothing. That is why God is God, because man is not here. Physically, mentally, or spiritually, God is infinite in his own tabernacle. Matters not where he is. When he is gone away as though he is sleeping in a dream, as if though he is asleep, God is omnipotent and omniscient in his own tabernacle. But if he was a man, then he would be limited, and would be limited on every hand, from every angle expressible. But man's extremity is God's opportunity. That is why my followers, socially, intellectually, financially, and otherwise, they are living above depressions and above lacks and wants and limitations, if they live exactly according to my spirit, my mind, and my teaching. For they will not allow man nor mankind to bind them behind the mortal version. For man has his destination, and they desire to bind you by the mortal version. Hence you could not have your real emancipation, if you are bound by the mortal version. Therefore you must transcend the barriers of the mortal version and go into infinitude, recognizing God's actual presence, and say, as I am daily saying, it is not by power nor by might, but by my Spirit. By my Spirit I will accomplish all things and will gain victory over every difficulty, over every opposition, over every trial and tribulation, for you and for all of my people, and I will not do it by power nor by might. The New Day, 26th of January, 1939, ADFT. Peace, family. Let's pause here to give some notes about the preceding excerpts before we move on to a very important excerpt that is very illuminating on the topic of evolution. Remember that Father transposed BC, the conventional dating before Christ, to BJ, before Jesus. This is to express the idea that while there was a time before the embodied person of Jesus, there was no time before Christ. The Christ is spirit without beginning or end, and ever expressive. When Father speaks of the first cells, he is not attempting to be biologically exact when raising rhetorical questions about male and female cells. He is rather emphasizing the question of ultimate causality or first mover, quickly tracing back to that primal question. The simplest and most primeval cells, of course, are asexual. They do not reproduce by pair bonding. There are many mysteries, however, encoded in the evolution of cells that are parably linked to the concurrence of sexual reproduction and the loss of cellular immortality. That point is very interesting in light of how Father reads the story of Eden, which we will go into depth about in future episodes. There are also profound mystery parables about the relation of the individual cellular unit to the multicellular unity that is requisite to greater complexity and the eventual materialization of consciousness. There is no evolution without this complexity, without this moving from the single cell to the multicellular organism. In this mystery parable, at the root of the tree of life, e pluribus unum is actualized, given profound life and expression. The non-gendered immortality of the actual first cells in biological evolution mirrors the ever-existent primal unity of the Godhead. God is first a monad, one, and so is the human image of God, both in the story of Eden and in individual embryonic development. Adam and Eve were originally one androgynous being in which so-called masculine and feminine qualities were fully harmonized, but unconsciously. The Hebrew word translated rib actually means side, and strongly implies that, like God, the primal human was a unity. This tradition also appears in rabbinical sources, in Plato, and in many, many creation mythologies around the world. This is because it is a memory of the truth. In heaven, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, to quote the Gospel, because they are no longer divided in or against themselves. The God-realized are not men nor women, masculine nor feminine, but beings restored to divine unity. Father Divine says, Jesus died so that you would not have to die, and I have married so that you would not have to marry. See the mystery? Sexual union becomes an imitation of the original unity of masculine and feminine in the same person, and before that, in the Godhead. The search for a partner or the exploration of different gender expressions reflects an inner incompletedness that only divine wholeness will satisfy. Differentiation was created to be complementary, not oppositional, helpmates, not opponents, together, not segregated. That is the natural state disrupted by the sin of othering, by self-exaltation and the objectification of others for the fulfillment of desire. God is our first, final, and only abiding complement and helpmate. It is perhaps also good to note at this point that throughout reincarnation, the soul tends to go back and forth like a pendulum between gender expressions. In that process, as much as in searching for a partner, it is also trying to return to the first primal unity that we see reflected in this day and age in the unity of Father and Mother Divine, who are really one God, one Father, Mother, God. Father promises to restore us to that primal unity, quote, before the first cell, and before sexual and gender distinction ever evolved. Evolution and reincarnation raise us by degrees from primal unconsciousness, a unity in God we did not know or appreciate, to the wokeness of infinite consciousness, from nothingness to being in God, to being as God. God alone is real, and God alone shall reign. Father iterates that God is the teacher here and that his followers will not abide reference to him as a man, even as a good man. In reality, we are always under the direct tutelage of God, and because all things manifest in or by the Logos, all forces ultimately serve our spiritual evolution. Father Divine is God incarnate. Infinite divinity alone animates his body. It is the great I Am who speaks in Father Divine. There is no mortal self within him, only the universal divine self expressing through embodied conditions God constructed for God's self and took on voluntarily. Neither his body nor his personality arose through heredity, experience, or personal karma. Father's visible material body is like a human's body, but remember, the human body is the image of God. God's body is the implicate desire and telos, or developmental goal, of all creation, and all forms aspire to it. Father's body is sovereign, Purusha, as the Hindus would say, or Adonai, as the Hebrew Scriptures say, not subject. A mortal is bound, but God is free. As a sample and example to us, we are also meant to fast from all separative identities and all ungodly identities and subjectivities until at last only God remains. We attach ourselves to God in different relationships according to our karma and development. To some he is master, to others he is friend, to others he is beloved, and so forth. Father is the sovereign self present in each and every being, even lying dormant in the stones. I tell you that out of these stones God can raise up children for Abraham. Matthew 3:9, Luke 3:8, and I shall take a worm and thresh the mountain, as Father Divine transposes Isaiah 41. Excerpts from Degrees of the Life of God Developed in the Five Kingdoms, spoken by Father Divine on August the 4th, 1932 ADFD in New York City, and also reprinted in the New Day on the 17th of June, 1972, ADFD. Father speaks. Well, the reason I asked that was because it is a wonderful place to be to see God in everybody and everything. That is a wonderful place to be when you get to that place. Then there is no difference. A person doesn't have to be at one place any more than another. They don't have to look to see one person any more than a cat or a dog or a snake or anything. They don't have to be at one place. They don't have to go to one person for cooperation or help or fellowship or inspiration or intuitions or anything of that kind, because it is the same every way. Now that is a wonderful place to be when a person can get to that place, because then and there that person is just it. That is a wonderful place to be. You don't have to go anywhere, you don't have to be anywhere, you don't have to do anything. I call your attention to that because of the fact that you have stressed so much like that along that line, that you don't see anything but God in everybody and everything. And still there is stressed in one's consciousness special individuals that they can see me in more than they can in some other ones. But if in saying that it was absolute facts, then it would be a wonderful place to be, because you would not need to go one place. You would not need to be one place. You would not need to stay one place. It would be absolutely the same wherever you would be, and then chickens, dogs, or cats, or any of those that are of the animal kingdom, you would be just as well satisfied in their presence, and absent from those that are in the man kingdom, if you saw it all exactly the same. Now I see the development of God being expressed in the varied degrees of development, as in the case of the life of God, as heretofore quoted hundreds of times in the meetings and the congregations of the people, and in the presence of you and others. I have said so often that the life of God in the animal kingdom is expressing itself a degree above the expression of the life of God in the vegetable kingdom, and the life in the vegetable kingdom is expressing itself one step higher and nearer to the light of understanding of the God kingdom than that of the mineral kingdom. It is the same life, it is true, but expressing itself in unconsciousness, not being conscious, not having any mind. Minerals have no mind, they have no consciousness, and in that life, that is in the mineral kingdom, there is the power to produce and to bring to manifestation by the hand of nature, by the great cosmic forces of nature, yet it has not the mind in itself in expression to act or to do or to be directly, but it produces unconsciously of its own product. That is the way I see it. Then I don't see in the life in the mineral kingdom exactly the same degree of developed understanding that I see in the vegetable kingdom. The vegetable kingdom is life expressed to a higher degree of expression towards the God kingdom, one step higher, and that is not the highest yet, not in consciousness. Very little consciousness has been made manifest in the vegetable kingdom. The vegetable kingdom, there is very little conscious life or mind there. It has been said that there are a few trees that have consciousness of things that they want. When it goes near it, it will reach out and take it to eat it. There are supposed to be 1 or 2 species of vegetation or tree plant life that will do that, as a slight sketch of the consciousness. But it is not like it is in the animal kingdom. In the animal kingdom, God is expressing himself in the way of life and of intelligence, one step higher than that, because generally those that are in the animal kingdom, they are conscious of something, therefore they are expressing themselves a step higher than the vegetable kingdom. As a whole, the animal kingdom is one step higher than the vegetable, and the vegetable kingdom is one step higher than the mineral kingdom. So then I say that the animal kingdom is not in the highest expression of God, and therefore I do not see it manifested as God, and as being called God in the godly understanding from a human standpoint of view, because they are classed as animals expressing themselves in the animalic state of consciousness that could not be the highest light of understanding, even for man. Therefore they are not conscious of things as man, but they have conscious life expressed. They are expressors of the life and the mind of God to that degree of the animal kingdom, every one after their own kind. The horse and the mule in their kingdom, in their special individual kingdom, they express themselves from that standpoint of view. The life of God is manifested there. But yet it is not seen in my concept of God. It is seen as an animal to that degree, because it is only known as God when it gets in the highest state of consciousness. The same as with a president. You are not a president until you become to be a president, you see. An egg is not a chicken until it becomes to be a chicken. When it becomes to be a chicken, then it is a chicken. It may have the seed idea and the power to become a chicken, but it is not a chicken until it goes through a certain process and comes to that degree. That is so in the animal kingdom also. Then I say the life of God from the animal kingdom expresses itself from a deeper light than in the vegetable kingdom. But the same light in the man kingdom expressed itself in the conscious expression of intelligence, and that is known as the man kingdom. It is not known as the God kingdom, neither is it known as God. Jesus Christ, the great love master, did not call man God because that was a humanic state of consciousness in which man functioned, and therefore imputedly or reputedly man was not God, and he must develop to that place in consciousness wherein that little leaven will leaven the whole lump before it will be leavened. So therefore I am not seeing it to the highest standard, yet it is a standard of life expression above that of the animal kingdom. Then we may know and should see man develop himself to the highest degree of his individualized expression, and yet not see the standard of God brought into display. So therefore I could not see or say, justifiably say, that I see everything equally the same in everything, or else I had just as well go and live with the snakes. There are expressions of God or life, it is true, but I just want to say that because so many get the wrong point of view and a misconception of the truth, and then go out and try to teach somebody else, you might just as well see God in me, And that is why there are so many people that are called sanctified, even truth teachers, professors in the scientific field as they call it, going around from hand to mouth, because they have set up something as God which is not even qualified to be a provider for its own family. and then calling something like that God, that cannot even feed one. There are plenty of men and women that are not even worthy to be called a mother or father because they have not the mothership or fathership degree of spiritual understanding. Then how would you like to have someone set up as God over the whole universe who could not even clothe and feed themselves? And that is where the zeal of mine house hath eaten me up. Don't you see? They know not the truth, and therefore they take up something unconsciously, conceiving a dog spirit in their consciousness to be equal with God, and give him equal rights with God. And that doggish spirit will eat up everything you have, and you will not even have a piece of bread to eat. In all of your getting, get an understanding. In all of your getting, get understanding. And before anyone tries to go out and teach anything, first get my spirit and get my mind, denying yourselves and putting off the old man with all of his deeds and his preconceived ideas, fancies, and pleasures, and present your bodies as a living sacrifice. This body that you see here called Mother, God has never had to give anybody his name. But functioning on earth among the mortal minds, God condescended to give this body his name, as a man from a natural standpoint of view. And it was for this cause, and none other, is worthy, but those of that type or of that kind. The song says, "Dear Lord, I give myself away. It is all that I can do." Because I was preaching as today, without money and without price, taking nothing for my journey, as a free gift to the world and to all mankind generally, Mother said, "That is one brother I would be willing to marry just to work for, to scrub floors for. I would be willing to scrub my fingers off because he is willing to preach the gospel in that way." Then because she was willing to give her life for me for the cause of the gospel, then I considered she was worthy to take my name. And then because she was willing to give me her physical life, I was willing to give her my spiritual life, and deny my spiritual standing as a man for her, and for the great cause, and therefore imputed her as though being a mother, for those that would be turned to God. So then that is why I let her take on the name, and went through the legal, material procedures for the purpose of establishing the kingdom of God on earth among men. Because if I had not, someone would have said, "I wouldn't want to follow that man, he has no wife," because they look at me in the likeness of a man, as being a man. But Mother is just the same to me as someone I have never seen, don't you see? So that is the idea. But what I am getting out of that is this. I want to say that the one to take my name, or to do anything like that, I have thousands and millions of believers now, but who is it that will inherit eternal life? The one or ones that are willing to give their lives, their physical lives, I mean all of their physical strength. Not that I want it, but they have got to be willing to give it. They have got to be willing to serve with their hands, physically and mentally, or else they are not fulfilling the Scripture, the first and great commandment. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength. Now some notes about this important excerpt, which is foundational to our proper understanding of spiritual evolution. Spiritual work is about gaining gnosis, which is unconditioned knowing, and returning to union with God. In this process, it is universally necessary to cease living in the separative ego and to surrender to the indwelling God. God appears externally only to awaken us to the universal inward presence, which Father calls the intutor. Ultimately, separation disappears entirely and only God remains. We become one with the divine within. This is the consummation of each and every spirit who descends into materiality, the ultimate consummation. This is reflected in Father's words about Mother, and is the meaning of the divine marriage. When we awaken to the reality of God, we seek out God more and more. Self-centeredness wanes, and the divine self gains more and more access for expression in the mind and body. Father personifies God realization. He is all God and our destiny. And Mother is God, playing the role of the perfect devotee, the saint who sees only God. Together they show us our goal and the way to get there. Father teaches that name means nature or essence. He marries and grants his name and immortal glorification to the soul that makes itself like Mother. As Lord Krishna advises in the Bhagavad Gita, "Whatever you do, do it for me." When we learn to live for the focused infinity that is the consciousness of God, and develop experiential confidence in it, or faith, we will catch its essence and inherit our true and unconditioned nature. When we have it collectively, we shall express it as a single unity on a global level. This whole planet is destined to marry God in collective spirit, mind, and body, and to give this unity a planetary expression. What is essential in this work is not the acceptance of the name and form of Jesus, or Father Divine in particular, but the dethronement of self and the enthronement of God in its place, the movement from self-centeredness to unity that is God-centeredness, from selfishness to expansive capacity for the infinite. The dethronement of self is best done through love, and most efficiently through love of a God-realized being. We must empty ourselves completely to be filled by the Infinite One. Jesus did this on the cross when he stated, "My God, why hast thou forsaken me?" And Father and Mother did it when throwing off their material bodies. They enact these mysteries that all might be fulfilled, because each of us must enact them. It is one thing to say or to intellectually know I am God, and another entirely to actually experience and personify the reality. We do not get there by affirmation or declaration. All of us are God in essence, now, but not in consciousness, experience, or expression, and it is selfish nature alone that stands in our way. Father tells us to see God in another body, even if it's only a chicken. Father says, "The first thing for you to do is to see God in someone else. Whom say the people that I am, Peter?" Now it is just to the reverse of that. Some will say that, and they have separated themselves from the sweetness of the Spirit. It is better to be God and not know it, than not to be God and know it. It is wonderful. Now you see it has been said so often, see God in yourself and then you can see him in somebody else. That is a selfish method, and it is through that selfishness you will dishonor and beset yourself if you are not careful. But the meekness of Christ may see God in someone else and not know it is the same one, and if you see him rightfully in someone else, why, you are the same one. But when he first comes, they say, "Look on us." That has been said so much. You have to see God in yourself, and then you don't see me, or don't see Father Divine, it has been said. It is immaterial to me whether you see me as God or not, but it is a blessing that you see God in somebody, though it is only a chicken. Then you are boastfully seeing God in yourself and rising up in the temple of God boastfully claiming to be God before you can see God in someone else. Whom say the people that I am, Peter? Some say thou art Elias, some John the Baptist, and some one of the prophets. But whom say ye that I am? I say that thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. That is the foundation of the church, that the gates of the other place cannot prevail against. That is why you have been successful, that have seen God in someone else rather than confining him to yourselves. Upon this rock I will build my church, upon this principle, this light, upon this understanding, the love of God concerning you. See God in someone else, and then I know that you are the same one. It is better for you to know that you are nothing than to see God in yourself. Here we have a chart from another faith tradition. This is a chart that was made at the instructions of the spiritual teacher Meher Baba and used as an illustration to the book God Speaks. It illustrates the evolution of consciousness through progressive material forms, just in the manner that Father Divine was talking about in the previous excerpt. Here you see that consciousness emerges from the state of God into gas and has lifetimes of experience in different forms of primal gases, like, I presume, hydrogen and so forth. Those coalesce into stone. Virtually no consciousness in a stone, but still there is animistic consciousness in it. God is in it, evolving. Father has confirmed this as well. Metal forms, plant, vegetable forms, then grouped together here, worm, insect, and reptile. Fish forms, bird forms, animal forms, and then human form. The human form coming there in a long line of reincarnations. Beyond the human there is a point of turning, which is the true turning to God, not the doctrinaire turning to God, but the actual turning to God of the whole being, body, mind, and soul, and the beginning of the perception of other levels or facets of reality previously obscured by material understanding. Think about the wonderful meaning of this for each and every one of us. Each and every human being has behind them millions and millions and millions of lifetimes of experience, and all of that knowledge deeply encoded into the very essence of the soul. That's what we draw on in our everyday life in so many ways. Our bodies have been built progressively by spirit, striving in and through matter. It's really very wonderful to think about. Think about the fact that, there are trees that live for thousands of years, and your soul, at some point in time, has had that lifetime, has stood in the soil of one sacred spot century after century after century after century, and learned the lessons of that form, learned the lessons of that. That is within you. It's not something foreign to you or outside of you. When Adam emerges, this is the reason he is given charge of the garden. He has all of the prior forms within him. He's been there and done that when it comes to stone, metal, vegetable, worm, insect, reptile, fish, bird, animal. In light of Father's comment about seeing God in someone else, even if it's a chicken, I include here Meher Baba's whimsical sketch of the mischievous chicken, used to illustrate a symbolic creation story he gave. The well-known Christian public intellectual C.S. Lewis wrote, "For long centuries God perfected the animal form which was to become the vehicle of humanity and the image of himself. He gave it hands whose thumb could be applied to each of the fingers, and jaws and teeth and throat capable of articulation, and a brain sufficiently complex to execute all the material motions whereby rational thought is incarnated. The creature may have existed for ages in this state before it became a man. It may even have been clever enough to make things which a modern archaeologist would accept as proof of its humanity. But it was only an animal because all of its physical and psychical processes were directed to purely material and natural ends. Then, in the fullness of time, God caused to descend upon this organism, both on its psychology and physiology, a new kind of consciousness which could say I and me, which could look upon itself as an object, which knew God, which could make judgments of truth, beauty, and goodness, and which was so far above time that it could perceive time flowing past. God becomes man, that man might become God. Saint Athanasius.